Please rise while the colors are posted. Former Congressman Michael McNulty will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for our opening prayer. Brooke Albert will lead us in prayer. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. I'm Peter K. Goebel, the Director of the Rensselaer County Veterans Service Agency. We've gathered here this morning to honor a deceased Rensselaer County veteran for the month of March, and that veteran is Joseph M. Sparana, Sr. We are honored to have with us this morning his family members and friends, Joseph Sparana, Jr., Jeffrey Sparana, Jan Sparana, his daughter-in-law, Sally Sparana, and family friends Mary Pat Donnelly, Ed McDonough, and Mike Manupella. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Also with us today to honor our Veteran of the Month are Rensselaer County Executive Steve McLaughlin, Congressman Paul Tonko, representing Congressman Antonio Delgado, Max Prime, former Congressman Michael McNulty, New York State Senator Daphne Jordan, New York State Assemblyman Jake Ashby, Rensselaer County Legislative Chairwoman Kelly Hoffman, Rensselaer County District Attorney Mary Pat Donnelly, Rensselaer County Court Judge Deborah Young, representing Rensselaer County Sheriff Pat Russo, Under Sheriff P.J. Higgett, and representing Colonel Earl B. Schoenberg, Jr., the commander of Watervliet Arsenal, Mr. Matt Day. We also have legislators Dan Casal, Mark Fleming, Nina Nichols, and Carol Weaver. As we are all well aware, Memorial Day and Veterans Day are special days to remember all of our veterans. This program was created to help us honor our veterans all year round. To us here in Rensselaer County, every day is Veterans Day. The Rensselaer County Honor a Deceased Veteran Program represents veterans organizations throughout the entire county. This includes members of the American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, Veterans of Lansingburg, Military Order of the Purple Heart, Marine Corps League, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Korean War Veterans, Tri-County Council of Vietnam-era Veterans, Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, Vietnam Veterans of America, AMVETS, and the Rensselaer County Veterans Service Agency. I will now ask Kelly Hoffman, Rensselaer County Legislative Chairwoman, and the assembled county legislators and former county legislators to come forward to tell us about our honored veteran for the month of March, Joseph M. Sparana, Sr.
Colonel. Everybody here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Hoffman. I am Chair of the Rensselaer County Legislature, and it's an honor for me to welcome all of you here today for our annual Honor of Deceased Veterans program. We have a long-standing tradition of honoring local veterans on the second Monday of every month, and this month it is our privilege to recognize the life and service of Joseph M. Sperana Sr. Joseph was born on August 17, 1917 in Lansingburg, where he would later graduate from Catholic Central High School. Joseph married Josephine Alida Quick on March 27, 1942 at St. Rita's Church in Cohoes. Joe enlisted in the U.S. Army in Albany, and later, more than 2 weeks after his wedding, like so many servicemen, enlisted. Private Sperana was assigned to Company A of the 15th Tank Battalion, 68th Armored Regiment, as a medium tank crewman. The 68th Regiment was based in Fort Knox, Kentucky, where Joe began his training before being sent to Camp Cook in California, where he would continue his training. The 6th Armored Division staged at Camp Shanks in New York before heading off on a 12-day trip to England on February 11, 1944. The division continued their training in England before landing on Utah Beach in France just a few weeks after the infamous D-Day invasion. Their mission was to join the offensive to take Cotentin Peninsula in support of the Normandy campaign. At the end of the campaign, Joseph's 6th Armored Division traveled through several cities in northwestern France, securing important passageways and bridges. In September of 1944, the 6th Armored Division was relieved by the 94th Infantry Division. This allowed the 6th Armored Division to head east toward Germany. The unit faced strong opposition as it crossed the Nied River from France towards Germany. The unit would later maintain defensive positions at the German border through December of 1944. Joseph M. Sperana Sr. left the European Theater of Operations on February 16, 1945, and arrived back home in the United States 12 days later. He was honorably discharged from the United States Army at Rhodes General Hospital in Utica. For his service, Corporal Sperana was awarded the European African Middle Eastern Campaign Medal and the Good Conduct Medal. Joe was also qualified as an expert on the 30 and 50 caliber machine guns. Joe returned to civilian life with his wife, Josephine, and they raised 3 children, Jeffrey, Joseph Jr., and Jan. He worked as a salesman and estimator at several different local companies. But what is so ironic to talk about on this day was that Joe would later become the director of the Rensselaer County Veteran Service Agency in the 1970s, and would later serve as a veterans counselor at Hudson Valley Community College. After he retired, Joseph and Josephine spent winters in the Carolinas and in Florida. He enjoyed growing roses and tomatoes and playing cards at the Monday night group in Lansingburg. Joe was active at St. Augustine's Church, where he was an usher for 35 years, and a member of the bingo and bazaar committees. Joe was also active with the Boy Scouts, VFW, the Lansingburg Rotary, and several other local organizations. Sadly, Joseph passed away on April 28, 2005, and left behind his beloved wife, Josephine, and his children, Jeffrey, Joseph Jr., and Jan, his daughters-in-law, Jacqueline and Sally, his brother, Michael, his grandchildren, Jeffrey, Jeanette, Jason, Amy, Lori, Victor, and James, and many great-grandchildren. We are grateful for Joseph's service to our country during World War II. He was part of what we call the greatest generation of Americans who fought not for fame or recognition, but because it was the right thing to do. As we stand before you today with his family, talking about his service, I bet Joe never imagined those years in the military that he would become so involved in veteran services in his professional life and his career later on. Even more so that one day he would be honored like this, and that one day his name would grace the walls of our halls of hero outside. On behalf of the county legislature, I'd like to thank everyone for being here with us today to honor the life and service of Joseph Sperana Sr. and allowing us the opportunity to reflect on a life well lived and service that will live on forever. Thank you. I'd also like to point out, if you have an opportunity after the ceremony, Joe's family brought some really unique items, some old photos, postcards, old coins, his helmet, and some other interesting artifacts from when Joe was in service that you should really take an opportunity to look at. And now I'd like to welcome our retired colonel who may want to say a couple of words. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. It's always a good pleasure for me to come here at these meetings and honor our past veterans. And I had the opportunity last Tuesday night to actually to honor a live veteran, which is I'd much rather do. And it was a great pleasure. I'm glad that we put that program in, Kelly. But anyway, Joe was in my branch, armor, and it was a good idea to take a look at them pictures over there. So it brought a lot of memories back for me. Of course, I don't remember them tanks, but they were kind of old during World War II. But they were armed with a 57 millimeter gun, and it was not very effective against German armor. It wasn't until they come out with the 75 millimeter on the next generation of tanks that they did anything. And then today, on our tanks today is 120 millimeter, which I had a pleasure of putting together over at the arsenal. And Jan reminded me that the guns that they fired back then was made at the arsenal. So we had a lot to do with it here in our hometown. Anyway, I just want to thank Joe for his service. And Jan and I were talking there. He was saying his father was in his 80s before he got him to open up a little bit about what took place during World War II. And most veterans during the war, they've all been quiet about it. They don't talk about it. And it's very hard to get them to open up, but at least he got them open up a little bit. So anyway, as Kelly mentioned, your father's name will be out there on the wall with the rest of the heroes that we honored here in the past 15, 20 years. So thank you very much for his service.
I just wanted to say a few words. I grew up in between 101st and 102nd Street and 6th Avenue in Troy, Lansingburg area. But I really grew up on Grace Court next to the Spranger's house because my grandmother raised us because my grandfather had a restaurant and all my mother's brothers and sisters worked the restaurant. So I got to know Joe since I was a baby, probably since I was talking. I just want to make a point to say thanks for Joe. Joe was a great guy. He was very tough, especially if you worked the polls with Joe. You know, I think I might have got thrown out once or twice by Joe. But Joe's mother, Joe's wife, your mother was a saint. She was one of the nicest ladies you ever want to meet. But I just wanted to say thanks to Joe.
Anybody else want to say anything? No? Okay.
At this time, I would also like to welcome New York State Senator Sue Serino. I will now ask our Rensselaer County Executive Steve McLaughlin to come forward.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor, and privilege, and pleasure to be here this morning to honor Joe Sr. Good to be with all my colleagues in government, and went around that way to avoid Jake's gigantic crutches. They're like the size of telephone poles, those things. But it's great to be here, and to look at Joe's military history. He certainly saw some interesting times over there, and as the Colonel said, as Colonel Walsh said, probably like most of those guys, they didn't say much when they got home. He reminds me a bit of my dad. He was in Japan about the same time your dad was in Germany. So it's, it's an interesting thing to see what they were doing over there. And all of them kind of came home, took off the uniform, put on a different uniform, and many other times just went to work and rebuilt this country into the greatest nation in the world. So to see him do all that, he was a quintessential Lansingburg guy, getting involved in everything, having his garden. He just looks like the typical Lansingburg guy that we see all over the place here, and very much a pillar of the community. And then we certainly thank him for his service here at Rensselaer County. Veteran Services Agency probably laid some groundwork for what Peter continues to this day, helping out our veterans, and that's really important to us. And even his work at Hudson Valley, being the director of the Veterans Council, we're very proud to link up with Jake and Hudson Valley and get some veteran services going in an even stronger way up at Hudson Valley. So your dad kind of laid the groundwork for that as well. So he did some great work for not only for the nation in defending it and the world, but then coming home and really being a huge part of this community. So we certainly thank him, and thank you for letting us honor him today. Thank you.
I will now ask Congressman Paul Tonko and Max Prime, representing Congressman Antonio Delgado, to come forward.
Well, good morning, everyone. And good morning to my colleagues and to former Congressman Mike McNulty. Thank you, Mike, for planting the seeds for these great opportunities to pay tribute to heroes who have preceded us and enable us to live free. And, of course, to the family this morning, Joe and Sally, Jan, Jeff. It's an honor to pay tribute to your loved one, to know that this hero who walked amongst us enabled us to be the free people, that we enjoy the opportunities and the freedoms that this nation provides. And it's because of veterans that we're able to do. And his resume is an impeccable resume. And, just to think of the selflessness of having entered the service just weeks after being married, knowing that he gave up much in that moment and went forth and played an important role in a powerful strategy that was a winning formula when it came to World War II. And his connection to D-Day, his involvement with the Battle of the Bulge, his participation with the Super Sixth as a division really made a statement of courage, of strength, of loyalty to nation, patriotism, and reminds us that it was that involvement of men and women across this country that enabled us to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And it's a rich history, one that still inspires freedom-loving people around the world. And to know that he did that in a powerful way and was recognized and awarded the European, African, Middle Eastern Campaign Medal showed his great commitment to the cause of freedom as a member of Patton's Army. And I know some of you said he had his on and off feelings about Patton, but the generals demanded much, and he responded. And then to come home and work within the construction arena with building supplies and being a salesman and he was going to continue to build community and nation in a very personal way, in a statement that he made time and time again, and to recognize that he had a deeply rooted commitment to community. So those freedoms for which he fought, he made use of, he invested when he came home by embracing his faith, embracing his community, and raising a powerful family that still is committed to community. So we thank him for his activism in the public arena, in the role of government, serving as a committeeman that provides for both sides to offer voters choice. So to him we say thank you for a very powerful life, a very powerful commitment through the Army, and to humbly say our thanks for his great service. Max is here today on behalf of my friend and colleague, Representative Antonio Delgado, and together we ask that a flag be flown over our nation's capital in honor, in respect, in tribute, in memory of Joseph Sparana. So may he enjoy eternal rest, and may we always remember his greatness that then penetrated into the next generations, especially within his family members. And Jan, I'm looking at you because you shared with me what a humble individual he was when it came to the war. And the fact that his characteristic of humility accompanied his journey speaks even greater volumes of who he is and was. So on behalf of a grateful nation, we'll present this flag to you, but first I know that Max wants to share some words.
Good morning, and thank you for having us all here today, and thank you to the Honor Veteran Committee for bringing us all here, and for all the assembled elected officials to honor your father here today. Congressman Delgado unfortunately could not make it here today, but he did ask that I come in his stead and present a letter from him to you on his behalf, expressing his gratitude for the service of your father and the life of service that really he led. Reading through the biography, it really seems that the thread that's woven through his life and ties everything together is devotion to others, to nation, to community, whether through his service in the military or serving in the Rensselaer County Veteran Service Agency, or through his work at the college, or even through all of his many community involvements it looks like he was a part of. That real dedication, devotion to the well-being and advancement of his community and the people around him and the people of the nation is quite evident. And I imagine through that, it's also quite evident that he was a great family man and father as well. Because I know those things often come hand in hand. So thank you for having us here today. And I do, as I said, have a letter that was authored and asked to be brought here by Congressman Delgado to you. So thank you very much.
I will now ask New York State Senator Daphne Jordan to come forward.
Good morning. It's my honor to be here today to present to the family of Joseph Sparano the New York State Liberty Medal. The New York State Liberty Medal is the highest honor that a New York State Senator can award to individuals for their exceptional, heroic, or humanitarian acts on behalf of their fellow New Yorkers and of their communities. And I don't want to repeat what everyone else has said, but your father had a wonderful life, a life of leadership, a life of heroism. When I started reading his biography and read about the time period that he served in the Army as, in a tank, from D-Day to the Battle of the Bulge, those are the movies we watch. Only for him, it wasn't a movie, it was real life. and it was scary. And for anyone that came home after all that, it's like a miracle. And so just for his service there, he is a hero. But after, when he came home, he became deeply involved in his community, whether it was the Boy Scouts, whether it was, you know, remarkably, his service here to the county as a former Veterans Director, and also with Hudson Valley Community College. But there aren't many people like him around, and that's why today I present the family the New York State Liberty Medal. And I thank him for his service, and thank you, because as a family, you had to live through a lot with what your dad has done too. Thank you.
I will now ask New York State Assemblyman Jake Ashby and New York State Assemblyman John McDonald III to come forward.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and to the Sparano family and Mary Pat, thank you for being here. And, you know, it's interesting, when we look at his career, it is full in many aspects. Steve had mentioned he's the quintessential Lansingburg person, right? In many aspects, VFW, faith-based community. I was actually taking a stroll down memory lane when I walked in, when I saw that they were married in St. Rita's Church in Cohoes. One of my first memories of Catholicism, back in the day when the priest never faced you, was a Latin Mass. And, you know, it kind of then led to, I'm sure this played a role. I mean, put aside everything else he's done, committee person, member of the VFW, veterans counselor, which I think is critical, but yeoman's work on being the bingo and bazaar chairperson and involved with the committee. I mean, I was saying to Kelly, I said, I dare say anybody under the age of 30 understands what a bazaar is in this day and age. But interesting enough, as a child growing up, and this is where I got my double or third trins, St. Rita's was the place to go for a bazaar. Mike McNulty knows it very well. We spent a lot of time there. So we appreciate that the legislature conducts these monthly events. It gives us an opportunity to reflect and remember those individuals who served our country, but just as importantly, served our community. So to the family, thank you today.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Congressman McNulty, for again starting this great tradition that we have here in Rensselaer County and see across the Capital District and all throughout New York. And thank you to the family for allowing us to honor him today. And reading the biography, I saw some similarities between Joe and myself getting married and then deploying and being in an armored division. I was attached to the 1st Armored Division, my first deployment. But that's where we kind of parted ways, because I was not in a tank in 1944 moving across Europe, seeing some of the most intense fighting the world has ever seen, and then coming back here and continuing to give in ways that few do today, after enduring what he did and sacrificing for his country and really leading the way. Looking at the dates, I mean, he was 24, 25. He was probably the old man in that tank crew in there. You had a lot of younger guys that were over there. So I'm sure the leadership that he displayed and the lessons that he learned, you know, back here in Lansingburg, he took over there and really helped him and our nation forge victory on behalf of the world. And then coming back here and getting involved at Hudson Valley, which started out as a veterans college, paved the way again for Peter and so many here at Rensselaer County, and you know, including myself, in trying to carry on that tradition. So he set the bar pretty high. And I'm really grateful that we have the opportunity to honor him today. Thank you so much. I'm going to make the walk.
Tim Forbes from the Rensselaer County Honor Deceased Veteran Committee will present the committee plaque at this time. Will the committee members please stand? Please stand for the closing prayer. Retire the colors.
Just a quick note. My father would be busting with pride. Democrat, Republican. This means so much. You wouldn't believe it. And thank you all.
Please join us for our next Honor of Veterans ceremony scheduled for Monday, April 11th in honor of Henry E. Leavitt. We'll also unveil the plaque outside this room in our Hall of Heroes to honor last year's recipients. Before we go our separate ways, we'll take a few family photos, then we'll reassemble shortly at our county flagpole to raise the flag in Joseph's memory. This concludes our Honor of Veterans ceremony for this month. Thank you for coming to honor our deceased veteran for the month of March, Joseph M. Sperana, Sr. Thank you.